this fast-paced technology evolution. So Indian government has put us a very clear vision for future of mobility. So I'll not get into the details of this. As part of this important initiative, uh, my focus here is around the clean and the cutting edge part. Clean when we see about like using the the energy, the clean energy in powering the electric vehicles and optimizing its performance so that in turn we reduce the CO2 emissions, and also the technology perspective where it needs to be cutting edge so that we can get the best performance out of the system. So electric vehicle, this is not something new. It was there almost 80, 90 years ago. And then the combustion engines vehicles took over. So electric vehicle is still a mechatronic unit, what we can say, but with less moving parts, a bit more of voltage, current, wires, components, and battery. The significant difference, if you can see here, the engine and the fuel tank is replaced by a motor, a drive unit or an inverter, and then associated battery, which powers provides the energy. And also, electric vehicle is setting up a good platform for what we call as computer on wheels, or what we can always call autonomous vehicles. I can say that it's crazy for public roads, even if you take it for Indian roads. But confined areas, I can say it's very promising. Confined areas, when I say like mining or a port, there are various applications which we can really think of. If you see technology transition, traditionally cars, they lead others in terms of at least they are 4 to 5 years of ahead when we compare to buses or trucks, or when it comes to two-wheelers or three-wheelers. If you see from an Indian context point of view, 80% of our volumes is in two-wheeler and three-wheelers. Slight shift might happen because as our economy is growing, we'll have more and more people preferring to buy a four-wheelers. So the percentage might shift, but I don't think it will be like a drastic change from 80% will come down to 70% or whatever it is. So still the focus is around two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Also, when it comes to technology, here is where we have an important role to play. We also need to take the latest technologies and put it in this two-wheeler and three-wheeler, and the same with the buses, which seems to be much viable. So when we talk about electric vehicle, there seems to be a lot of focus around batteries and its the range connected to it, but there is so much to do when it comes to vehicle efficiency. A better motor drive system, aerodynamics of the vehicle itself, reducing weight, and also tires, a specific type of tire designed for electric vehicles. So with this kind of an eagerness in this electric vehicles, I went on to compare a bit with the different type of diversity what we have in Indian automotive world, starting with the two-wheeler to three-wheeler to four-wheelers, like light-duty vehicles, buses, and also the heavy-duty trucks. I've taken various aspects into consideration, like energy consumption, battery weight, battery voltage, vehicle speed, torque, motor torque, power, brake power, retardation. This kind of an analysis has really helped me to get some perspectives out of the what are we really trying to compare with. So I will go to the next slides where I will put my insights of what the information is gathered with. And this information will be available for you for your, you can use it for your comparisons. First, most important thing is about when we compare various vehicle aspects. For India, it makes more sense to start with two-wheelers and three-wheelers. Even when we compare various aspects, starting with two-wheeler and three-wheeler makes more sense. The biggest advantage is the high volumes. Compared to the trucks and buses, we have the clear volume advantage. One more very important factor in Indian conditions is the ambient temperature. Most part of India have a higher ambient temperature, almost around 40 degrees. And even in summer seasons, it can go even higher. And then also, if you see, like some part of our countries also can go in the winter season below 10 degree, or there are sub-zero temperature areas also. So for EV, one of the major aspects is the thermal part of it. How do we handle the thermal aspects in the overall design? If you see the latest, or at least the volume of vehicles, maybe around 1 million to 1.5 million of vehicles, which EV vehicles, which already we have in the market now. We have a lot of imported components where we have integrated it and then we have sold the majority. Government has been very much supportive here in coming back with the guidelines, FAME 1 and FAME 2, as you know. There is a very good encouragement for localizing the overall content. This also helps in cost reduction, but also government is encouraging with a lot of incentives. Because as you know, the EVs, it comes up with the initial costs are quite higher. Another aspect also is the gradability part. As you know, when we have this, you might have observed in North India, like we have what we call as e-rickshaw, or a two-wheeler with less than 25 kilometers per hour, where we don't need a formal license to drive it. They are very much built for a lower speeds without much of a support for the torque. But the real dynamics of the vehicle is totally different. Like with the gradability, with the more load, it needs higher torque, and also it will have higher energy consumption. What does vehicle weight and size mean? As I mentioned, with more vehicle weight and size, aerodynamic drag, as the vehicle speed increases, the aerodynamic drag factor matters a lot. Almost our 30 to 40% of our consumption, energy consumption, goes to handle the drag. This is one of the aspects where how we can make our electric vehicles more aerodynamic friendly. One more catchy thing here is auxiliary loads. With the higher grade vehicles like cars or buses or trucks, we have the HVAC system, the AC system. This amounts to almost 30% of the consumption. I have some graphs in the further slides explaining like how exactly the temperature aspects really matters or relates to the energy consumption. Typically what we compare like watt hours per kilometer we talk about. Higher range needs more battery, which means that which means less payload. If you assume like your overall vehicle weight is 3 tons, and your payload for that vehicle is around 1 ton. With the ICE engines, we always can carry a fuel tank which can support a lot of kilometers. But when we talk about battery, a 50 kilowatt hour battery almost weighs 0.6 ton, 600 kgs. So keeping the same vehicle weight, we are automatically reducing the payload. Or if you'd like to still support with the same payload, you increase the overall vehicle weight, which also results in less energy consumption. So this is one of the biggest challenges what we are facing today. Braking and stability challenges, especially like coming from commercial vehicles, trucks. As the vehicle overall vehicle weight crosses 40 tons, the braking power is huge. One example, typically I can say like a 50-tonner truck will have a braking power whenever in the decelerating mode, like 600 to 900 kilowatt of power. It's a huge power. Like the service brakes, if you apply it, it just you will kill the service brakes quite quickly. So if you see in the ICE combustion engine vehicles, we have retarders as one of the ways to reduce the or apply the brakes, or engine brakes, what we call as. So this is again, stability of the vehicle is extremely important as we go for a heavy duty segment. This is also one of the challenges which is quite important to take care. And with heavier the weight, we also need high torque, and that also needs transmission in heavy vehicles. You can't just go with the direct drive system. Then you will need to have really high current motors, which is practically like we put more copper on motor, and that might not be efficient. The best way is to go with a high speed motor and use a transmission to drive the needed torque. But in the two-wheeler or a three-wheeler or a four-wheeler, the motors, electric motors are quite good with initial torque. We can go with a direct drive system. As I was mentioning, India drive cycle. So before we go to authorities, whenever we have a new vehicle, we need to get it certified by authorities. So in India, we have something called as India drive cycle. Typically, this is followed for a two-wheeler and a three-wheeler. And then we also have, with the advancements in technologies, today we have something called as modified Indian drive cycle, the second one here. And then for the buses, and with these electric buses evolving, there is something called as Delhi drive cycle. So this is a slightly different pattern compared to the modified Indian drive cycle. So this is extremely important because this helps in having a best optimized design suitable for Indian conditions. So as I mentioned, like when we import the technology, we need to also adapt the technology for Indian conditions to suit the Indian driving cycles. So even with this prescribed cycles, our cities are getting congested, and the average speed, vehicle speed is decreasing. Like some cities have 25 and some cities have even lesser than that. And then say like, do we have an average driving cycle? Because sometimes we can get stuck for hours. So the challenges here is with the ambient temperature, as I mentioned, and overloading is one of the challenge, because whenever an OEM comes up with a product, they will say, okay, it will support this particular range, but with the prescribed payload. But if the customer goes with the overloading, automatically it will stress the battery, and then we will have the range will automatically reduce. Road quality, potholes, bumpy roads. So when we are importing technologies, these aspects we need to consider. We need to re-engineer it to make sure that this meets potholes or bumpy roads. We can always expect government to come up with fantastic roads everywhere, but I think it has its own practical challenges. As I mentioned, lower average speed. Reliability targets. As you see, Indian automotive industry has evolved. We have OEMs talking about warranty and extended warranty. With BS6, there is something new which I learned also, that it's going to come what we call as in-service conformity. It's about, as you get certified for BS6, there is also a recertification where on road, like the vehicle running will also be tested so that we have a stability in the emissions what we have committed for. This is really good. I feel the same thing will come for electric vehicles. Like for example, today batteries, one of the aspects is how reliable is it after 3 or 4 years of usage because of the cycles of charging, discharging. Will I have a consistent performance over a period of time? The same with motor drive systems. Can my motor run for 10 years, 10 years, 10 lakh kilometers? I feel motor is quite promising in that sense. They showcase a very stable performance. Batteries is one area which I think the reliability targets needs to be carefully managed. And gradability. If you see today, the standards say that below 70cc vehicles, the two-wheelers, we go with a 3.8 degree around the gradability whenever the certification is done. But for others, it's at 7 degree, which is taken care. But as you know, we have places wherein the gradability is more than this, so which also stresses the overall motor drive system or the drive system, which we need to take care of. When we talk about driveline efficiency, as I mentioned, localizing is important and also redesigning for Indian conditions. This is extremely important. I think you know very well about this typical torque speed curve. We always go with what is the best sweet spot for a torque speed curve. Right? So even if we talk about ICE vehicle, combustion engine vehicle, or if you talk about an electric vehicle. But one of the biggest advantage with the electric vehicle is the torque at a lower speeds is really good. So that's one thing which we can best use in our design. Simulations, there is so much of advancement in simulations. So it's so important for us to use it in our early stages of development so that the localized and re-engineered solutions are verified for the best performance. As I mentioned, well-defined reliability and durability targets influencing the warranty and extended warranty aspects. This is something I think each OEMs can commit to a customer that, okay, I promise you many years of running or extended warranty. It's all depends on the confidence and each OEM has in their overall design. Lightweighting of motors, driveline, we can talk about, battery technology is evolving. We are having a better and better energy density of batteries. The cost of batteries are coming down, fantastic. But still, we have a lot of role to play when we talk about the overall drive system, where we can use lightweighting solutions for motor, inverters, and transmission. Every kilogram of weight what we reduce, automatically we can either carry more battery or for the same battery, we can have a better range. It's so much directly proportional. Reducing losses and regeneration efficiency. I mentioned about it, right? Vehicle design for better aerodynamics. This is important. Bigger vehicle have more losses at higher speed. Better tires for efficiency. We carry more vehicle weight because of the batteries. So tires needs to be really designed for these conditions. And also the tires has to be relooked for the initial torque of electric vehicles. These aspects needs to be taken care. And EVs are silent, which also means that tire noise making of tires, that aspect also we need to look into. Integrated units, this is the concept which is quite hot now, like I think hub motors you know very well for two-wheelers, which is talked about. Even when we talk about cars or trucks, we have something like e-axle where it has motor, inverter, and transmission together. These aspects are coming in so that we can even whatever the loss we have, we can reduce it with keeping everything together. Regeneration is one part where we can really look into because currently I think the best what we can get is around 20 to 25% or around 20%. It depends also on the type of the vehicle. We can also learn from some of the concepts. Formula One always have a fantastic advanced concepts, but re-engineering surely should be possible. Like You might have heard some of the fans in Formula One racing, right? KERS, Kinetic Energy Recovery System. Fantastic concept, like with flywheel. Supercapacitors or ultracapacitors, which are more known for high power density. Why can't we capture the energy during braking and slowly charge the batteries? That's another option which can be looked into. Next one is adaptability. With the same driveline, how it can be adapted for different battery combinations. As you see in India, we are now talking about replacing the battery, right? Swappable batteries is one option. And when you talk about swappable batteries, for sure, battery manufacturers will think about, I will go for the latest battery, which has a lesser cost and a better energy density. Then can we put it in the same kind of a driveline? Is it easily portable? So this is a challenge and an opportunity what we have when we talk about driveline development. I mentioned about the ambient temperature aspect in my previous slide when I was sharing. This is one very interesting graph, which was for a Nissan Leaf electric car. As you can see, a typical consumption, you see the x-axis here is the temperature versus the energy consumption. As I mentioned, it's mentioned in watt-hour per kilometer. The very comfortable temperature is 15 to 25, wherein you can see the best efficiency, like almost 125 watt-hour per kilometer. But you can see now, if the temperature increases, if it increases more than 45, which is typically common in India, you can see almost the energy efficiency is doubling, which means the range automatically drops down by 2. The same if it goes in the other direction, the negative temperature, again, you have a situation where the consumption really goes high. And one more challenge is, as you go the negative temperature, minus temperature, or in the plus temperature, we need to make ourselves comfortable in a car, right? You either go for a heating system or you go for a cooling system. That also consumes a lot of energy. The same when we talk about the range. Again, you see the best is to operate at 15 to 25. Anything plus or minus, it has huge impacts on the range. It almost reduces by half. I talked about the adaptability part. As we talk about drivelines, we have moved away from conventional, or we are moving away from conventional ICE engines, combustion engines. Then we talk about pure electric driveline. But as you see, a lot of alternate solutions are coming in. One good example, what I can say is in the heavy duty vehicles, we have something called as charging in the highways, right? What we call as electric highways. Our Honorable Prime Transport Minister recently told Delhi and Mumbai highway there is a plan to have electric highways. It's basically charging the vehicle on the highways itself. This is one which is evolving, so we need to have a system to make this integrated. The same if we talk about heavy duty vehicles, we have this fuel cells coming in now. So it's more of still having the motor drive system, but still instead of full energy coming from the battery, we use the energy from the fuel cell and then we drive the motor system. And then also, like, we have seen a lot of things about biofuels, biodiesel, a lot of things are evolving, because if you see from an Indian context, where is the sweet spot? We are still to evolve it, like this is the way the overall automotive will evolve. Technologies are catching up now. Let us see where is the best combination that will work out. For sure, electric driveline will have its importance moving forward. A quick part on motor performance. Today, if you see, like we have 4 different combinations of motors what we use. DC motor is basically the BLDC motors. Then we have the induction motor. Then we have the permanent magnet synchronous motors. And another one is the sync reluctance motors. So there are various factors which I got in one of the papers, how they are differently performed. If you see today from a performance point of view, PMSM is the best. Today, as we see, this is the most used motor in most of the electric vehicles. But one of the biggest challenges with the PMSM is the rare earth material, the permanent magnets. And even for India, as you know, we import permanent magnets. We don't have the natural resources. Then when it comes to induction motors, this is another very good option. But induction motor seems to be less efficient. So the latest trend which is evolving is what we call as synchronous reluctance motors. It's a promising one where we go away from the permanent magnets. So this technology is evolving, and as you see, some of the OEMs have already introduced vehicles with synchronous reluctance motors. And I'm so glad that some of the Indian companies are redesigning or developing new motors which are around interior permanent magnet motors, especially for two-wheelers. That was really, really nice too. And then from a technology point of view, also the radial flux, then axial flux is coming in. So as I say, technology is evolving in a faster pace. I mentioned about adaptability. I can say platform thinking. This is a very important aspect. I found this one of the company, REE. I think so most of you might be knowing about this. This is an Israeli-based company who are into the electric vehicles. They have come up with a fantastic scalable modular architecture. It's called a skateboard platform. It was so amazing to see this. Like they have this the base with the battery put in here, and the motors are every wheel has a motor and the associated inverter and the transmission. Everything is, it's not a hub motor, but it is put closer to the wheels. So each one has its own four motors and associated drive system. And the best part is the same kind of a platform has been extended to almost a medium duty truck and a bus. And they offer this as a solution, and any OEMs or the final vehicle builders can build the body of the vehicle on top of this, and they can sell it. You might be knowing like one of our Indian OEM, Mahindra, has a tie-up with REE. So we will have more and more better batteries will evolve. And also, as we see driveline option also, like we will have hydrogen coming in, or we also have the hybrid solutions at some point of time also will be used or continue to be used. We need to have something what we call as a plug and play approach. I talked about this driveline with different battery packs, integrated units. Then comes the point about the overall drive system. Usually what happens, okay, a driveline system comes as a package. You have a motor, inverter, and the transmission, from three different suppliers, and each one coming up their own software platform. We have a challenge here because, say, for example, we go for a localization of motor. Does it work with the respective inverter or also with the respective transmission? Or do we need to completely redesign the solution? Here we have some real good thinking to be done. One more aspect when we go for a platform thinking is we will have the software platforms to be reusable. The moment there is a technology evolution, I carry on the same platform, adapt it, and tailor it for the new needs. So that should give us more flexibility. So overall, to summarize, importing technology is okay. I think we have done and we have been selling a lot of vehicles. But then adapting re-engineering to Indian conditions is very, very important. And we have a lot of tools in front of us. We can use simulation techniques, which are quite advanced now, which we can use. lot of companies, lot of simulation companies have demonstrated very upfront how we can use the complete electric vehicle, we put it in the simulation environment and increase the performance of the vehicle in the initial stages of development. One more thing which comes with fantastic with electric vehicles is the data analytics and the connectivity. They are coming hand in hand. That's a brilliant opportunity to optimize the performance. When the vehicles are running on when they are in the customer hands, we can automatically monitor the vehicles, have some fantastic machine learning algorithms, fine-tune the performance, and upload the software over the air so that the customers can get benefited. I feel this is a wonderful thing for electric vehicles. But then when you talk about data analytics and connectivity, I don't want to limit it to electric vehicles, because even combustion engines also have the opportunity to do this. But we have much better prepared with electric vehicles. Optimize the product cost, but with good quality and reliability. This is important. It's not about selling vehicles in India means it's reducing cost. With the cost, a good quality and reliability. That is our customers need. And when we talk about localization and re-engineering solutions, the skill development is important. When we talk about skill development, it's not about people knowing about motor drive system from an engineering perspective, but also from a manufacturing perspective and maintenance perspective. So we need to see the complete ecosystem when we talk about the skill development. As I mentioned, as vehicle weight increases, complexity is higher. So it's always where do we invest as in India, where do we invest? For me, it makes sense with the three-wheeler and the buses. Adapting towards fast-paced technology evolution, same driveline working better with better batteries. So this is another important aspect we need to keep in mind. And for all these aspects, the base aspect part is platform thinking and reusability. This will give us more flexibility, and finally our end customer is benefited. With a better optimization of the vehicles, we will have less energy consumption, energy efficient vehicles, which means we will use less natural resources. And finally, it's our responsibility to hand over greener planet to the younger world. That should be the overall ambition of us. Thank you, and over to you, Ravindra, for question and answer.
Thank you, Surya. I don't see any questions. Let me check, in the chat box,
Someone's raised their hand. Someone's raised their hand, so maybe we can.
Ashok Rajput, you can speak.
I think I have to introduce myself first. I am A.K. Rajput, Chief Engineer Research and Development from Central Electricity Authority.
Welcome, sir.
A continuous participant and your fellow being in all these missions and standardization and all such things.
Yes, sir.
Certain questions are in the chat. They should be taken as on record and be developed further. Main thing out of that I am telling, and which I am just writing, is that in the completion of the electric vehicles, there will be alternative fuels like ethanol and methanol, CNG, and the hydrogen. So a proper perspective has to be taken what composition and in which geographical locations and in which circumstances we should use which type of the fuels, we should promote which type of the fuel. And another thing is, a vehicle is geographically permitted throughout the boundaries of the country. So whatever the electric vehicle is running in Delhi, that should also successfully run in Chennai and the Bangalore and Mumbai, and also of course in the smaller towns. What happens, the vehicles getting old, are sold in the open market, they then flow to the smaller towns and then to the rural areas. So in this regard, the IC based vehicles which are existing are foolproof. They can survive any of the geographical location. That is one. So whatsoever we are thinking and whatever our roadmap is there, we should think on this point also. As well as there are certain critical applications like ambulances carrying the security personals, particularly in the typical and tough terrains of what you call Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and other areas. The type of the fuels in those vehicles, what it should be, that is the thing which the policymakers and the experts should deliberate upon. Not decide right now, but they at least this would be in their mind. Another points are of general nature. As a common man or even the sales personnel can explain much better, as I am just reading. How does the normal size of the EV compares with the IC engine cars in terms of the acceleration? Particularly, what are the braking impacts? Whether its braking is more comfortable as compared to the normal cars. Emergency braking is more effective, because that is more important. Whether emergency braking is comparatively more effective as compared to the conventional cars, or will it be the same? Particularly in the rainy season, we have the waterlogged situations in many of the roads. When the vehicle gets stuck up, say IC engine based, in the waterlogged area, we have to do the servicing, proper servicing of the engines. They stuck up there, they have to be then pulled by another healthy vehicle, the cranes, to the service centers. Here the sophisticated and more elegant driving train and the control circuitry will be there. What will be their performance during particularly high humidity and high temperatures? And there is also a fact that about 2-3 years back, ISRO opened their technology of the lithium cells to be used for commercial purposes, of course with the transfer of technology agreement. At that time, our observation was that their cells were designed for an ambient temperature of 40 degrees Celsius. How is the situation now? Whether the technological breakthrough has been taken that these cells have been designed and redesigned for an operating temperature, not the operating temperature, but the ambient temperature of as high as 50 degrees Celsius and higher. Another issue is passenger safety, particularly with regard to the battery fire. If luckily it should not happen, unfortunately it should not happen. That is one. The maintenance of the electrical parts. Maintenance and the servicing is one issue. Normal IC engine based, they prescribe the services either 5,000 kilometers or 6 months. What will be the servicing cost and what will be the frequency? And when we come to the source, that is the fuel, charging infrastructure no doubt has to be in place. They also have to say they have to be equipped with the network management system, as well as all the safety aspects as regard to the electricity handling and electricity use, proper metering, and as more automation increases in terms of the auto charging, maybe the unattended charges will be the real picture in future, not the person charging us based on the particular attendant there. A common driver, common person, a lady operating the car should be in a position to easily charge its vehicle, safely pay either through any of the electronic media card or some card, Google Pay and what those. And in that also the cyber security, as well as the cyber security to the utility upward system, because it will have the interface through the automation communication channels from the demand side management and the load management aspects. And what should be the future roadmap? And what would be the alternatives other than the lithium battery? can any other technology as
Sir, sorry
just
to interrupt you.
this is the last one. This is the
Sir,
last
if you
one.
can make the question because we need to give others also a chance to ask some things.
Okay,
Would be
okay.
really nice.
That's why I have written in the chat so that it will be useful for you as well as the participants in the long run. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Rajput sir, I have noted it down. Let the speaker or Ravi Kiran answer. But anyhow, I have noted down and we will come back to you on the question.
Right,
Don't
sir.
worry, I have noted it.
If you are recording or if you are maintaining the chat also, these are in chat. Of course, some mistakes are there, spelling mistakes. So you kindly correct at your end.
Yeah, that is absolutely okay. I have noted it down.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for the input.
So you can maintain the flow of your this. Now further, I will not interrupt. I have interrupted a lot. So henceforth, I will not interrupt. I will listen only.
Yeah, no, very good inputs. We will take it to the respective teams connected to the charging and also the battery. A lot of different aspects. Also, when it comes to alternate fuels, yeah, we exactly don't know how exactly it will end up, right? Because this is an evolving technology. But one thing what we will look into is how we can make the EV motor drive.
And as an alternative, I have corrected in the meantime the spellings. Again, putting this in the chat for the convenience.
Thank you.
That will help.
So, Jaya, there is also one question from Rahul Singh.
Okay.
As you can see the chat window, there is something on SRM motors
No,
are cost effective and have good efficiency, but it is not commercialized as much as PM motors and IMY. Maybe if you have some answer for that.
Ravi Kiran, can you repeat which motor?
No, I think there is a question from Rahul Singh talking about SRM motors are cost effective and have good efficiency, but it is not commercialized as much as PM motors. Why? I think.
Yeah, I can say a lot of OEMs are evaluating the Sync RM motors. For sure, it will be released to the market in a shorter time. Technology development has already happened, and I think it will slowly. Now I can see that there is a peak of PMSM, but now slowly Sync RM also will be used a lot.
Yeah.
There's another question. Are we still using vector control for drives control in industry?
Yeah, it's basically when we talk about the motor control, right? The vector control is one of the popular methods to get the best efficiency of the motor. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one question from Ashok Kumar Vemala. Combination of battery with ultra capacitor, will it be any advantage to powertrain?
There are different options looked into this. Like if you suddenly, it's ultra capacitor are known for power density, right? So which means that you can capture the energy. But now how that energy can be used, whether we can run some auxiliaries with that, or you will still use that kind of an instant energy to slowly charge the battery, which is known for energy density compared to that. Evaluations are still going on. Some of the OEMs have done some extensive work, but then I can say a lot of companies are trying out this concept.
There is one from Kevin Alfonso. As you are talking about challenges, I'm curious to know, after the vehicle is fully charged, as per my knowledge, it can go up to 300 kilometers. As you are talking about trucks, it is obvious that it should travel much longer distance. How you face this challenge?
See, one of the aspect is even today, if you see our combustion engine vehicles, right? When we buy a vehicle, when we see the specs, it says, oh, it runs 20 kilometers per liter. But then when we start actually measuring, it never will be 20 kilometers per liter, right? Because you would have used AC or our driving pattern, right? Driving is an art by itself, right? It differs from person to person. A best driver can have a better fuel efficiency. it's a similar challenge what we have with EVs. When we say 300 kilometers, the OEM says it also depends on the way a vehicle is driven, the way we also use the regeneration possibilities, the way we have loaded the auxiliaries, because auxiliary load, everything, the energy is consumed from the battery. So it's always, we need to have this understanding when we start to look into the OEM specified range and how we have used the vehicle. So these factors from a user perspective, we need to look at.
There's
Yeah.
another question by Prajwal K. Says, what are the downsides of electrification-centric monoculture among OEMs?
I don't think there is a downside of it. I can see it's an important enabler. Because as you know, we have as a nation committed to Paris Agreement, right? Wherein going forward, we will reduce CO2 emissions. So one of the major area which we need to look into is the transport segment. So electric vehicles is becoming an enabler. But having said that, only electrical vehicle will not solve the problem. So which also means I can say a downside because you can't just release all the electric vehicles in the field and then use the energy for the batteries from the coal generated power stations. Then we are just transferring the problem to somewhere else. There I can say electric vehicles are on the downside. But if we have the electric vehicles and the energy for the batteries come from renewables, right? The government is pushing a lot for renewables, solar or wind. That is a fantastic transformation, which I feel government has put really ambitious plans by 2030, 30% of our EVs will be electric, which I can say it's really a transformation and supported by the renewable energy sources. Only electric vehicles taking energy from coal, I think we are just transferring the problem elsewhere. In my
Achha, I think, yeah, there is one more.
From Akash Samrat. What is the sustainability of lithium-ion cells for a larger usage?
It's a very good question. Maybe the intention was not to get into the battery part, but for sure I'll answer this question. The batteries, lithium ion, when we talk about for an automotive usage, it goes what we call as state of charge until 80% of its the level of quality or state of charge or health, what we call about state of health. After 80% is not suggested to use for automotive purpose. So when we talk about the sustainability, today we are talking about why can't we have second life for batteries? This is the already lot of startups have come, a lot of companies are investing on recycling of batteries. So before this lithium ion batteries are recycled, from this 80% of state of health to almost around 40-50%, we can give a second life of batteries. So the second life of batteries means either powering up the buildings or industries. That will be the huge business, in my view, what's going to catch up. And after that, it will go for recyclability. So this is the way the sustainability part is taken care. And even in the recyclability, how there are a lot of areas that are looked into, like it should not harm our environment.
There's one from Mohammed Ali. Similar to OBD standards, Euro 5, 6, etc. There are any guidelines or legislation or standards for EV diagnosis? EV diagnosis.
Yeah. It's a really good question, because if you see, there are standards today, AS standards, which have come up for electric vehicles, and it is getting improvised day by day. So the diagnostics part, there are some part of it which is captured, but then there is still a lot of improvements to be done, and that is something is a responsibility of us in also supporting the government to improvise these standards, so that all of the OEMs and the entire ecosystem can get the best benefit out of it, and especially in the diagnostics part where it really helps us to have the best of the performance from the vehicle. So it's evolving when I talk about standards, and this is also one of our initiative from IEEE in supporting this in a big way.
Yeah, Mohammed Ali, there are some IEEE standards also. I will just check exclusively for diagnosis. You can just send an email to me. I will give my email ID. But there are a lot of standards on EV, IEEE standards. And I will take last question. Mr. Ashok Rajput is the Chief Engineer R&D CEA, Central Electricity Authority. He has put a lot of questions. I have noted down, and we'll come back to you, sir. I'm just addressing one last question. You have asked what is the future roadmap, and other than lithium battery, what are the other alternative power sources? So future roadmap, we have this program, and I will send an invite. In fact, I had sent to chair also. Maybe I'll send separately to you, and it will be nice, and it will be great if you can join the program. You are our GAPS representative, Rajput. Yeah. And other than lithium, what are the other alternatives? I'll pose the question to the speaker.
Yeah, there are a lot of other technologies which are evolving. So many technologies. That's what I was saying. Like ICE engines have survived for 70, 80 years, right? Now we are not sure whether a technology or a driveline which is survived, or an energy source, energy like battery type of technology used, whether it will survive for many years like a combustion engine. Technology will evolve. We talked about sodium batteries are coming in, aluminum, air. So many parallel options are getting evaluated because we'll have natural resources constraints and every aspect of it. So there will be a lot of alternatives coming on the battery point of view. Lithium-ion will not be the one. For now, yes, lithium-ion is the answer, but a lot of alternate technologies are coming.
Thank you, Suja. If attendees have more questions, they can post the questions to me. I will pass on to the speaker or the right people. As I said, we have one initiative, roadmap, implementation of EV adoption roadmap for India and Asia. So you can be part of that. You can contribute. If you have any questions other than this, you can post me. I'll put to the right person. We have subcommittees also, and we'll see to it that you get answer. But we'll be happy if you can join the group. With that, I will hand over to Shreya for proposing vote of thanks. Over to you, Shreya.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to thank our guest speaker, Mr. Sujaya Kumar from Volvo, for enlightening us with his knowledge. Today's webinar was full of insight and interesting things, and I'm pretty sure that this will definitely help us in shaping the future of e-mobility with respect to drivetrain optimization. So I once again thank you all for making it to the webinar, and wish you all a wonderful and safe.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you,
joining.
Sujya,
Stay
for
safe.
your.
Take care. Yeah.
Thank you, Sujya. Thanks, Shreya and Ravindra also for coordinating all of that. Thanks, and everybody for joining. Stay safe, please.
Thank
Yeah.
you, and stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you all, and you can post the questions to me. You can visit our website www.ieee.org or standards.ieee.org. If you have any questions for on EV, or you have questions related to IEEE, you can always post to me. Thank you once again. Stay safe and take care. I have posted my email ID also in the chat.
Thank you.
And those who are interested in joining the industry connection program on EV roadmap, I can write to me. Anything, Ravi?
No, nothing from my side.
Yeah. Thank you then. And the presentation will be shared with all the participants. Please take a note of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. I'll just put that presentation will be shared on the chat.